Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale of Connect. A great season finale. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, this is kind of where all the storylines converge kind of on one point, because obviously we have picking up with Dong-soo being caught by Jin Seop. And obviously he wills out Z because he wants to experiment. His plan, and I once again, it went well beyond what I thought. Once again, there was a whole conversation last episode, and I talked about it too, was the whole, the Boda Theseus conversation of like, right, how much is going to actually be me when I start taking parts of you? But it's like, oh, why take parts of you when I can take the entire body? How about I cut off your head and put my head on your body? I'm like, how would you necessarily do that? I mean, I guess it would make sense. I guess like all you had to do was move his head as far away from his body as possible. Because you'd have to basically cleanly cut your head off and make sure it's in proximity to his body. So his body would have no choice but to get your head and not his own head. But that's his thing. And like, hey, that way I'll be in your body. And he also showcased, and I thought this was a really interesting aspect to the whole Connect situation. Anything close enough to the body will be brought in. It is very symbiotic in that it absorbs whatever's nearby. So he ends up cutting off Dong-soo's finger and also Z's finger. He gives Z Dong-soo's finger, but he also gives Z to Dong-soo. So it's like, meaning if he wanted to at any point in time, Dong-soo, because he doesn't know the full capabilities of his healing factor, he could have taken anyone's eyeball and replaced his right eye with. So, because he didn't know what, and obviously that's what this experiment was about for him. Seeing that, does it need to be an original body part for his body to, it's like, no, it's like, it will latch on to anything. So that kind of leads into an experiment of like, right, so if I do cut off my head and put it nearby your body, it will like unnaturally attach my head to your body. And once again, it's like really sick and twisted that that's kind of his ultimate plan. So, and obviously Z's being informed about everything. It's like, right, this guy, he's a corpse art killer. I'm sorry that this is happening to you because of me. I'm the guitar man. So at the same time, this is all happening. They see the whole Z getting attacked by quote unquote Dong-soo, but Detective Choi sees through it. He's like, oh, that's Jin Seop. And the other detective's like, wait, that's Jin Seop? It's like, yeah, he sees through it. It's like, why would he go through the trouble of doing that? To frame him? It does beg the question, like, for one, it was because that whole aspect didn't play out yet. What I mean by that is he ended up getting Dong-soo's attention regardless, so why put on such a spectacle unless it was to continue the whole approach of, hey, once he's on my cancerous body, his head will latch onto my cancerous body because that's the only one that's going to be left. The cops are going to come looking for him and he's going to pit everything on him. Maybe that's the justification. That's still left unanswered because I thought the whole point was like to put pressure on him from the cops, which it still could be applicable, but in Detective Choi's case, it's like, nah, I'm not buying it. I know that's Jin Seop. So they ended up finding more pictures on the camera and ended up, because obviously the organ traffickers were following him everywhere. And one of the places they went to was his lair where he does all his artwork, essentially. At the same time, this is all happening. Irong takes care of the guy that's following her, and she meets up with, now the subtitle, the way it's spelled out, I don't know if it's just like just a Korean pronunciation. She says Gideon, but I don't know if it's, because it looks like it's spelled like Gideon, so I'm just going to call him Gideon until now, but it looks like it's like Gideon. And not unless it is her saying Gideon, it just sounds just like Gideon. Either way, I wonder, was he just a normal human at some point? Because like, I don't know if he's just a naturally hulking person. He definitely gave me Solomon Grundy vibes, especially later on when he was wrecking shop. But like the fact is, he's got like that mask on. I don't know if it's like permanently stuck on his face. Like, did it get burned onto his face? And now the Connect keeps it there. Was he a prisoner? Like, we don't know his situation at all. We know there's more than one, but I guess he's kind of her partner. We don't know like about any other Connects right now. But in that moment, she's like, yeah, we're going to have to leave here and we're going to find somewhere nicer. And I was wondering like what that was in retrospect to. She made it sound, I thought when she killed like all the organ trafficker people. Like, I thought she was going to take their places or something. Like, in like, oh, I'm going to take their money and their places. But her and Gideon went to shop on people, like just smacking people around. It's like, yeah, it's hard to beat someone. Well, for one, he's hulking and superhumanly strong. Like, it does seem like even Dong-Soo and Irong have some, it seems like on some occasions, it does seem like they might have some slight superhuman strength, but I don't know, maybe it's just like, maybe it's a thing of you're not necessarily super strong, but it's just because he's a hulking person that's why. Because Irong seems like sometimes she'll have like regular human strength, so I'm unclear in that moment. But yeah, that last dude got it super hard, got his head clean ripped off, and I even love like his body's like moving for a little bit, and even his hand almost kind of comes up. Like, I don't know if that was meant to almost be like almost like a wave in a weird way. I saw it as that, but I was like, that's brutal. And then later on, it's like, oh, are you tired from all that fight? You go ahead and take a break, and he curls up to like this plushie or something like that. I wonder, is, once again, very Solomon Grundy, like, I wonder, is it kind of like his brain kind of is not at normal capacity just because of maybe stuff he was put through, you know? It might not just have been Dong-Soo and Irong who had tough childhoods. Maybe his circumstances are pretty messed up beyond what we can really comprehend, maybe. But they ended up showing up at Jin Xiao's place. Sadly, Z ended up dying, and, you know, and obviously Z was blaming himself, being like, hey, I kind of got in the way of, I'm sorry, I can't be of any help. And he dies, and it's just like, obviously Dong-Soo did a lot to save him, because it's like, hey, this is someone who took my song and made something beautiful. He's like, I loved your arrangement of my song, and I you know, I just wanted you to know that. And so luckily he ended up breaking himself free, because he ripped off his hands and reattached them after getting free. Luckily Rong shows up, so her and Dong-Soo started, not her and Jin Xiao started duking it out. And because he'd ask, like, oh, like, could your powers be passed on to the next generation? She's like, oh, I was actually wondering the same thing too. So she's like, so what do you want to do? Do you want to take Dong-Soo's body and then basically impregnate me? Or do you want to take my body and have Dong-Soo impregnate you? She's like, I bet you the latter is kind of what you want. I was like, it is interesting, because he does seem completely obsessed with Dong-Soo, because he had that whole conversation, that whole diatribe about how, like, they are so similar yet so different. Like, I'm someone who wants to create this beautiful art who's dying. You have this immortality, but you want to do everything you can to live a normal life. I wanted anything but a normal life. We want what the other has, and what the other's kind of taken for granted. I think that's such it's interesting diametric thing that they've kind of got going on. But Irong and him kind of duke it out. Might be a serial killer. I mean, you might think like, oh, like he's kind of like Dexter. Like, Dexter was pretty skilled in some like hand-to-hand combat stuff too. Still doesn't mean he didn't get his ass handed to him like time to time over the course of the series. But Irong and him are duking it out, and it's like, once again, it's like, how do you? He can't necessarily beat either one of them, because it's like, well, he had at least preparation when it came to taking on Dong-Soo. But the cops show up in time, and sadly, Detective Choi's partner ends up getting got, which sucks that happened. I figured something bad was going to happen the moment they got separate. They went separate ways. I was like, that's not going to end well. And so Detective Choi ends up running into Gidan and Irong, and it's like, oh, she's like, if you didn't know what you know, we can't have any. For one, it's just regular people. It's already, I mean, to be fair, they've already kind of cleared a board of anyone that's aware of Connects, except for the old guy, because he's going to keep Dong-Soo's secret, because he doesn't know what that's all about. But the organ traffickers, they're never going to stop, especially now that you know it's not just Dong-Soo. They also know Irong's out there, and they're going to keep looking for us. And she's like, we're going to basically kill and crush anyone that ever tries to use our bodies for their own purposes, you know? So that's why she was like, yeah, let's kill all of them, because they're bad guys anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. But she's also saying like, hey, let's kill the detective, which I'm like, it sucks, because the detective's a good guy. But it's like, you know, I think he handled the Dong-Soo situation not the best way, but still, for him, it's like, I'm a detective, I'm all about seeking the truth. So, because she's like, why does it matter what this is all about, considering you're about to die here and now? He's like, yeah, but that's kind of my thing, you know? But he's like, right, he kind of says that you and Dong Su must have had rough lives. I can't even imagine that. And I guess like his sympathy and the fact is that he doesn't necessarily just see them as monsters, but it's still just kind of like, right, there's a bigger puzzle here. So Irong was kind of, I was surprised that she ended up letting him go. So, but Dong Su and Jin Seop have their final showdown. And he's singing the song, and I love that. And I think it's so, and I think it speaks volumes, or maybe it signifies a connection between them. But like in that moment, Dong Su isn't, he isn't like having to grab his other eye, like he's almost doing it calmly, like the pain doesn't bother him anymore. Or maybe it's just either because the whole situation's integrated so much, their minds have melded so much now that it's like it doesn't hurt anymore, or just because it's like, right, like he's staying steadfast because it's like you don't get to like hear my song, you don't get to sing my song, you psychotic bastard. So they go toe to toe, and he keeps shooting, and I just love how that was like. I love the cinematography for that, just like getting shot, his body twisting, the blood splurting out, and then coming back into his blood, and just keeps going and going, even to the point he gets a headshot, which I'm like, oh, like there goes your eye. But I'm like, well, even if you lose that eye for whatever reason, you still have one of his eyes you can take too. But it's like, no. The eye eventually grew back, and in that moment, like because he's in such close proximity now, the eye. He's willing it to kind of come back to him, so it reaches into Jin Seop's eye socket and rips it back out and puts it. It's like, yeah, I'm complete again. And for him, it's like he wants to kill Jin Seop, but Detective Choi stops him because it's like, right, you don't need to become a murderer to stop a murderer. Which Iran's just kind of looking, I think, because despite everything, he is the only one that hasn't actually killed anyone. Once again, and even him and Irong are on like opposite sides of the situation. She's all about conquering the world. He's not. He is more so about, I do want a quiet life. I want a normal life. Like that's all I've ever wanted. Detective Choi doesn't want him to become a murderer. Just, yes, he is a piece of crap that deserves to die all the lives he's taken, but it's like, right, I don't want to have to prosecute you in the process. Because once again, despite it all, it's like, I understand the circumstances, but like I am a cop and I don't want to have to get you prosecuted in all of this. But like I said, it's just that interesting look on Irong's face, almost being like, well, she's the one that decided, I guess like, maybe being around Dong Su's kind of making her get softened up, or maybe just seeing how sympathetic Detective Choi can be, maybe that kind of speaks volumes to her. But ultimately, they leave Dong Su in his care and ends up taking off before SWAT arrives. But Iran kind of notices, like, she hears stuff, and it's like, what the hell is that about? So they end up getting to the rooftop, and there's a whole bunch of, like, airplanes. And so I'm assuming it's, like, not unless it's, like, the military is onto them. Maybe that's someone they've had to kind of hide away from. It isn't just this pharmaceutical company. Maybe the government, or maybe there's like a black op kind of government organization that's aware of their existence, that has ties to this pharmaceutical company that's hunting them down, because there was like a shit ton of choppers above the building. But before then, obviously, Detective Choi's nose starts bleeding again, and then we see with Jin Seop, his eye starts acting like a connect, because I think he's become one now. And that was something I was wondering before. I had said, like, right now that he had the eye, could it be that could it spread to the rest of his cancer and like potentially heal it up? It's like, well, to be fair, he's had the eye for long enough that I think it's now like there's remnants of the connect. Like either it's kind of like a piece of the symbiote like stayed behind and didn't complete. Interesting. I would say all that too, just because of not just because that's how the symbiotes work and stuff like that. Just funny enough, obviously, like No Way Home had that situation, but it wasn't just him. We see it with Z as well. So the question then becomes, and I get the feeling he's still alive, at least Jin Seop is, so there's a good possibility that he's now become a connect, like it could spread from the rest of his DNA. So now there's a question, is Z still alive now too? Because it's only his finger moving, but maybe it will move to the rest of his body. Like I said, the difference is Jin Seop is alive under those circumstances. Z died. He's dead, but the connect can start your heart up again easily. We've seen that. So no telling what the aftermath of that's going to be. It's like, man, I wish you had killed him when you had a chance, but now it might not be possible to kill him. So the last thing you want is that immortal bastard being able to do whatever he wants to. Hope, even if you arrest him, I don't know, man, just that's a crazy place to leave off the season with quite the cliffhanger like that. At the time of me recording this, it's December 27th, so it's been a couple weeks since the show came out. Whether or not it's coming back for a second season is unclear. Everything's kind of reading like, hey, it's going to be a one-season thing, just because not a lot of Korean dramas apparently do go past one season, but this is based on a webtoon, so that also kind of has to be brought into the equation as well. It's set up as a one-off, and I guess it's like, even if it is one, at least it's based on a webtoon, so, or a comic that you could directly like read and potentially pick up. I'm sure there was some things changed and, adapting it, but I do hope it gets another season. Just everything I was reading so far, like I said at the time, it's just kind of reading like it isn't going to get one. Like it doesn't even seem like it was planned to get one, but it has such a cliffhanger that like you feel like it should get one, but maybe it won't. I don't know. I don't know how much of the source material it covered. I guess because of that, kind of implying like it didn't cover all of it, but I don't know where we are in the webtoon, whether or not the webtoon's even still going at this time. I'm not even sure what the status of the webtoon is because I can't even track it down. So I don't even know if it's done, if like what its current status is. So I can't even, like I said, really even equate like how much of the story potentially is left. Whether it's like, oh, it's done, so that gives you a better metric, or whether it's ongoing and what's ongoing, this is only covered like a third or so, stuff like that. So keep an eye out on it. Like I said, I hope we do get a second season because I'd love to see where this would take us because this is such a wild story, especially to see in live action. It's crazy, but also like there's still so much unexplored about the other connects and why a pharmaceutical, we know a little bit of why the pharmaceutical company was behind this, but are the people in the choppers connected directly to the pharmaceutical company? Is that kind of more like a military, like mercenaries type of thing they've got going on there? What about the Gen Op and Z situation? A lot of questions. Like I said, fingers crossed, hoping we get a season 2, but based on what I've been seeing and the way it's been structured, of like, yeah, it seems like this is just a one and done despite the cliffhanger. Like I said, we'll keep generally anyone keeping it, other people keep an eye on it, but I'll try and keep an eye on this situation too to see if there's any developments on that front. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.